would like to invite to the stage Fran Katsudas and Rola Dagger from Cisco. Fran is Executive Vice President and Chief People Officer at Cisco, and Rola is President Cisco Canada. Together, they will be sharing an organizational approach to better mental health. Please welcome Fran and Rola.
Thank you, Tara. And thank you all for making the time to listen to this conversation. Rola and I are so happy to be here today and to talk to you about something that we think is so critically important. And what we'll do today is talk to you about how a company is approaching mental health, talk to you about how this conversation is evolving in the workplace, and I think some of the things that we can do through storytelling to make it okay. And I'll start by sharing something that's so interesting. When we think about the workplace, almost on a monthly basis, there are updates and insights about leadership and culture and what's changing. There are so many leaders today that believe demonstrating vulnerability is key from a leadership perspective. But what's interesting is that has never made it okay to talk about mental health in the workplace. And this is still a taboo conversation. And so what we'd love to do today is tell you a little bit about the story at Cisco, because it's candidly something that we kind of fell into and learned quite a bit. And so the story starts about 11 months ago. And I was on a plane with our CEO and chairman, Chuck Robbins, and we had just heard about the tragic death of Anthony Bourdain, which had followed the tragic death of Kate Spade. And we were talking about this, and Chuck stopped and he asked the question, I wonder how many people working at Cisco are contemplating ending their life. And just think about that question. Think about how profound that question is. And I think for a couple of minutes, we just couldn't talk because we were thinking about all of the people that we care about and see on a day-to-day basis, and just this realization of how significant the issues are. And listening to you, Tara, what we know is that somewhere between 20 to 40,000 of our employees on a day-to-day basis are struggling with a mental challenge. And then when we think about all of the employees with their extended family and friends, probably every Cisco employee is thinking about mental health, yet it's something we've always been supportive of from a treatment and support perspective, but it wasn't something that we talked about. And so what happened was that Chuck sent an email that following morning to all employees at Cisco. And there were key messages in his email. And the first was, mental health is health. And I think that's incredibly important. And the second was, you don't have to go it alone. And he sent this email out. It was a very caring email. It was a short email. And he just wanted to let people know that he was thinking about them. And we were overwhelmed with what happened. He didn't just receive emails back saying thank you, which you would expect. What he received back was stories. And we received so many emails from our employees wanting to tell us about their own challenges, wanting to tell us about their children or their parents, what they're dealing with, how hard it is. And what it told us was that there was a very significant need that we needed to address within the company. And candidly, I don't think we've received a response to any other communication like we did to that email. And it really started to drive us to act. And Rola and I were talking about the day that that email went out. What was so amazing was we happened to be at a Cisco event, and people were stopping us to say things like, there's someone on my team, I've been close to them for years, and they called me today to tell me that they have been struggling with a deep depression. And these are folks that are very close to one another that never knew. And so these stories just came out, and it guided us to make room for storytelling at Cisco. And shortly after Chuck's email, we actually had a several-week period where employees were putting their stories up on our intranet so you could read about what they were struggling with or how they're helping a friend. We dedicated an entire company meeting to the dialogue as well, and there was more storytelling. And in doing so, elevated the conversation to a place where people felt like they could come and ask for help. And so what I'd love to do now is hand to Rola, who, as an executive and leader at Cisco, did such a beautiful job of telling her story and inspiring others to come forward as well.
Thank you, Fran, and thank you for having me here to tell my story. It's amazing how a story has such a big impact across the world. And it started for me, I was born and raised in a very, very small country called Lebanon, and in a very small village where it had literally probably 150 people. Born and raised most of my life in a war zone, and my father taught us nothing but to hide from bombs and be in bomb shelters. And a father that had 6 girls, in a Middle Eastern culture, it was a shame in the town that they thought, what is he going to do with 6 girls? So going through that, you know, the war and being in a family where I had to, I was given away at marriage at 15 years old. I had no choice. I became a mother at 16, 17 years old, and my parents decided to immigrate to Canada and keep me back home. And I was pregnant at the time. That was the worst day of my life, where you see your family just leaving and you're just on your own in a country where you don't know if you're going to survive the next day. Talk about mental health. I think every single day in my life was a struggle of not knowing if I'm going to survive or not, or how I can survive. But it wasn't something that anyone could talk about. Like, it's like, are you kidding? What does that mean? No, just get up and, you know, look pretty, or go do things that you normally do. And I was lucky enough that my parents were able to sponsor me after 2 years in escaping Lebanon in a trunk of a car with my 9-month-old baby to come to Canada. And that's why you'll always hear me say that I'm a very proud Lebanese and a grateful Canadian, because Canada has offered me the opportunity to be who I am today. It's amazing, Atia, you're here. You said something that hit me so hard, that if it's not your struggle, it's invisible to you, until it was my struggle when I saw it happening to me, but I was strong enough to deal with it. But then I saw it with my kids. When my son's best friend hung himself in a dorm room at 18 years old, one of my family members came to me and said, help me die. And she has beautiful kids. She has an amazing life. She's a very powerful executive. And I said, no, you can't die. So to me, it became, I was 12 months into Cisco, and I thought, leadership is not a position. Leadership is an action, and I have to do something about it. And I reached out to Chuck and Fran, and I took a chance. You know, I'm Canadian, so I'll give you a reference. Wayne Gretzky, a hockey player, says, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So I took a shot, not knowing if it's gonna ruin my brand as a new leader at Cisco, or it's gonna help me and help others by telling my story. In fact, I just got from Ottawa yesterday, where our Prime Minister handed us an award for winning the best place for mental health workplace in Canada, period. It's because, thank you. It's because Chuck and Fran listened to the stories, listened to what I had to say, and they said, you've got the empowerment that you need to go and make a huge impact in Canada, where we started talking about it. We partnered with CAMH, which is the Center of Mental Health and Addiction in Canada. And I said, imagine what technology can do today, because we are at the intersection in our phases right now. We're at the intersection where technology is impacting human progress. And I could not be where I am today without the support that I got from my leadership team to take my story and go out there and inspire others through technology to make a huge impact. So thank you, Fran.
Thank you. So you probably get a sense for this, but Rola is someone that just makes amazing things happen. And when she first talked to us, she talked to us about the opportunity for us to leverage our technology to really connect people around the world, to support, to access to others. And so that's something that from a Cisco perspective we're doing today. So not only are we trying to support our people, and I'll talk a little bit about some of the things that we're doing, we're trying to leverage our technology to connect people to the best of our ability as well. One of the things that we started about 1.5 years ago is something called emergency time off. And emergency time off is basically telling our employees, hey, we know that things come up in your life, and when it does, just take time off. And we give them up to about a month to take time off to take care of their families or their friends. And what's been interesting is that with the dialogue and with the storytelling on mental health, people are taking emergency time off to help their family, but once again, they're telling us why, and that's not something that they have to do, which just leads me maybe, Rolla, to a question for you. Last night I had asked you a question that we've never talked about, and I asked Rolla if in previous companies she shared her story and some of the extended family members that have asked her for help, and you said,
No. I've been in the industry for 30 years, and I've never shared my story. In fact, I was diagnosed with cancer 10 years ago, and I hid it for 2 years. I hid it from people at work, from my boss, from my family, because I didn't know how my boss is going to look at me, and what am I going to do? Do I invest in rollout, or maybe she's going to go on sick leave? And until I started at Cisco, in the culture was amazing. It was overwhelming. In fact, it's overwhelming to the point where you can't believe someone, the power of Chuck and Fran, took a story and made it global and inspired so many people that at work in Cisco Canada, we have sessions and seminars every quarter that people are coming up. The closest person to me at work that makes me who I am today, after 20 years of battling bulimia, she got up and spoke in front of the entire company because this encouraged her to come out and talk about it. Her father is a doctor, has been trying to help her for so many years, and he couldn't. But when she saw the power in opening up when she's broken, it actually made her so much better today, and I'm so proud that we're able to do that. And we continue to have that in Canada and even globally now with Chuck and Fran when they did we call it the Cisco Beat, where like 20, 30,000 people online, and we all connect, and they asked me to tell my story. It's terrifying, by the way. It's uncomfortable, but it's so rewarding because it's not about your brand, it's about the character, and it's about how much empowering and inspiration you can give to others and what others could learn from your stories. And the amount of emails and text messages and LinkedIn messages, I was like, oh my God, I'm not a psychiatrist or a doctor. How do I deal with this? But we actually taught our leaders, and I was able to learn how to just listen to understand, not listen to speak. And that's the power of dealing with someone with mental health, is just listen to understand what they're trying to tell us and just make them feel so loved. So that was it.
Yeah, I would say just a couple of things. So the first is, I think many companies are thinking about their culture, and I think many companies are thinking about how do they create this environment where people can be their whole selves. We talk about this a lot at Cisco. I don't think there's this thing called work-life balance anymore. I think there's just life. And so what that means is that you have to see your people as they are and what they're dealing with on a day-to-day basis. And so for us, creating that culture, I think, is really important to us. The second thing is having amazing leaders that are willing to tell their stories. Let others know, wow, look at how successful Rolla is. If she can tell her story, I can too. And I think that's so incredibly important. Something that's happened recently for us, and Rolla, feel free to jump in, is that we're now hearing that candidates are coming to Cisco wanting to work for us because they've heard of our approach on mental health. And so that's something that's really fascinating for us. We talk about things like, hey, be you with us. And we know that everyone has something. Everyone is carrying a heavy load. And so it's wonderful to see candidates now seeking us out for that as well.
Yeah, and we're seeing that a lot in Canada because especially the last two awards that we got on mental health, we have the environment. It's such a safe environment that we're basically out there on social media saying it's okay not to be okay. And we welcome the opportunity to work with people that feel that they could come to me or anybody in the organization to talk about it. And they're seeing what we're doing. In fact, we're the only company in Canada that we offer an extended benefit plan, which actually allows our employees $25,000 a year, which is equivalent to 150 visits to a psychologist and a psychiatrist. In Ottawa on Monday, one of the government officials said to me, we're fighting to go from 1,000 to 1,500. And in Canada, it takes at least 6 to 12 months to see a mental health specialist. And the fact that people are seeing that for them and their family is a huge amount of people. It's overwhelming because I don't even know. I have 7,000 requests from people just to have a conversation to see how they can come and work for us just on LinkedIn.
So I'm going to ask you, Rolla, to talk about technology for just a moment, but something that we feel very strongly about is we do think that the corporate workplace can actually lead in addressing the mental health stigma, and we think that's an opportunity for all of us, and we think that there are some very simple things that we can do and then some bigger investments that we can make around the globe in allowing our people to have access to the best. Across Cisco, we have 3 on-site clinics for our employees. And what we're doing is we're offering mental health support there too. And so 1, we're trying to make it easy, but 2, we're trying to make it okay to access. So why don't we go ahead and quickly touch on technology?
Yes, for sure. I think I had an aha moment when I was talking to one of our customers that leads the biggest mental health institution in Canada. And I said, imagine we use technology to improve the way we deliver mental health services. Because most of the sessions that you have to be there, you could really actually use technology. So I said to their CTO, I have an idea. It might be stupid, but let me just share it with you. Imagine an app where you could actually just be able to hit one button, and connect to a psychologist in the hospital just to be able to get people out of their beds, out of home. I mean, if you have teenagers, and most impacted is between the age of 15 and 24, they don't want to talk to parents. They don't want parents to drag them out of bed. But everybody has an iPhone. Everybody has a smartphone. Imagine they use that phone to help them connect with someone to tell them, it's okay. Let me help you through it today. And that's what we started with CAMH. We're using our collaboration technology to enable every single psychologist and a psychiatrist at CAMH to basically connect with the patients from anywhere, from a workplace. Someone could go to a private room and have that session with their psychiatrist. They don't have to get stuck in traffic for 2 hours and have the exact same experience that they have using technology. My doctor, I was at my physician last week and I gave him the idea. He said, Rolla, that's amazing because I get a flood of kids from university coming to talk to me about what they can do from a mental health, and it's just a conversation. So I'd love to start launching this as a physician to my students in university, and we're in the process of helping them do that because those kids don't want their parents at the beginning to know what's happening. So that's the power of technology. And for me, I look in Canadians right now, I belong to the Business Council of Canada, 150 CEOs. We challenge them all to start the conversations in their workplace to do exactly what Cisco started globally and in Canada. And I'm so proud that you chose Canada to be your trial, because I can't wait till we take this global, that trial.
Well, thank you for leading us. And Tara, at the very beginning, I think you used the word explore. And I think that's such a great word. I will tell you, this is tricky. And I would say that there is not perfection in how you help engage in this type of dialogue. I think we are trying to figure it out. We're working on this around the globe. Around the globe, there are different cultural challenges that we're up against. But thank you so much for allowing us to tell our story. Again, this is definitely a topic where we feel like corporate America can absolutely lead and break down some of the stigma around mental health. So thank you.
Thank you.